Welcome to another episode of a Blissfully Balanced Life podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by Art House Hotel, New York City, which boasts 291 guest rooms, 3 on-site restaurants, and nightly live entertainment in Manhattan's Upper West Side. Book your next stay at www.arthousehotelnyc.com or call in for group rates and events. Today is exciting because we're going to do something a little bit different and we're going to dive into money, which can really be a taboo topic, but we have somebody so special here with us. Her name is Bernadette, and I'm just going to have Bernadette introduce herself to all of you.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm Bernadette Joy, and I call myself a money enthusiast. And my story starts with the fact that my husband and I paid off $300,000 of debt, including student loans and our house, and so we live a 100% debt-free lifestyle, and my mission is to help eliminate $1 million of debt in 2020 by helping 100 women pay $10,000 each towards that debt.
Oh my goodness. Wait, hold on. I know there's something really special about that timeline. How long did it take you guys to pay off all of that?
It was 3 years, so $300,000 in 3 years, which sounds like a crazy number, and in hindsight, it probably was a little bit, but I was just so focused on it that whole time, and it wasn't until I came up for air 3 years later that I realized that we did it. So.
Oh my goodness, that's huge.
Thank you.
That in itself is like so inspiring, especially anybody who's in college or like just graduated and like.
Yeah, and who's swimming in that right now. Absolutely. I didn't, luckily for me, I didn't have student loan debt in undergrad. I decided to voluntarily go back to school and put myself in debt for grad school. And it's amazing how many other people that I've met through the last 3 years who are going through a similar situation and trying to live their best life but are drowning in debt, and that's something that I think we need to talk about more.
For sure. So wait, what did you go to grad school for?
I went for my MBA, ironically, where we did not talk about debt, but we talked about it like, oh, if you run a multi-million-dollar business, here's what your financial statements should look like. But we never talked about, hey, if you're a regular average person in America, are you doing well or are you doing not? And I never figured that out in my MBA program, and ironically was in a worse financial situation because of it.
What?
America, I love it.
Oh my goodness, the irony. So how in the world did you guys make all that money in 3 years? What did you do?
It was a combination of things. I tried to succinctly summarize it in an acronym that helps me kind of put it together, which is CRUSH. And that's why I very purposefully tell people I help people crush their debt, because the CRUSH is an acronym for all the steps that we took. And quite simply, none of it is rocket science. The first part is just to cultivate a new money mindset, meaning learn about money, teach yourself about money, and not hold all this garbage in your head about what money is supposed to be. And then R is reverse engineer your life goals. And so that is the biggest piece that I think is missing from the talk about money today, is that everyone talks about the math and the numbers, but they don't talk about the why, and like why you should care about it in the first place. And most people are not going to get out of debt because they just feel like they should get out of debt. They want to get out of debt because they actually have something more important to them, whether it's starting a family, buying a house. So for me, it was starting a business, figuring out what that was. And then the U is simply using a money managing tool, anything to help you organize your finances. And then the last two, which I get the most questions about, is spend unapologetically on what you love. And I say spend on what you want because there is such a myth out there that if you are living a debt-free lifestyle that your life sucks, or it's like completely unbalanced, or that you're working all the time, or whatever it is. And counterintuitively, I spent a lot of money on things that people normally wouldn't expect me to spend money on, but I chose to cut out some other things that didn't matter to me as much. And then the last piece is just hustle, the good old grind. And I'm a firm believer that in this day and age, it's very hard to be financially independent with just one stream of income. I think you have to have 2 or 3 or however many you can get to make things work.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are so good.
Thank you.
There was one I was thinking of in particular, but I don't remember it yet, so it'll come back to me.
Yes.
But I love how you brought up, I do remember it now, but we'll still go back to it. I love how you brought up how you have to spend on things that you love, right?
Yes.
Because when you're starting to cultivate a new money mindset, it's also remembering that money's energy.
Yes.
So do you want to dive a little bit deep into that?
Yes, I would love to talk about that. I have kind of seeing this thing over and over again where people treat money like it's so scarce. And I felt that way too. When you're $300,000 in debt, you feel like you can't ever have enough money. And what has been very interesting to me in this past year, we became debt-free in April of last year, so coming up on a year of living this lifestyle. And now I have this weight off my shoulders where I don't feel like I can ever make more money. And I realize I can always make more money. That I learned that is plentiful, but I don't have a lot of time and energy. And so I stopped wasting time and energy and stuff that in the grand scheme of things, I don't really care about. And that also is money, right? So I see people all the time who are like, I don't have the time or I don't have the energy to be able to do things that I want to do. And it's like, well, why did you choose that? Is it because it's really important to you or is it not, or whatever it is? And so perfect example is I'm a huge K-pop fan, and that's not everyone's cup of tea. And people are pretty surprised that I spent an embarrassing amount of money on going to the BTS concert here, even though I don't live in New York City. And people are really surprised by that, but I said, you know what, that is where I want to spend my time and energy, and it's different for everybody. And that's the other thing too. I think everyone has their own choices of where to spend your energy, right? So there's no judgment.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. Money mindset, cultivating a new one.
Yes.
One of my favorite exercises is writing a letter to money.
Okay.
Have you heard of that one?
No, tell me. I love this. I'm already excited.
So the exercise is like you sit down and you act like money is your best friend and you literally like write a letter to money and you're like, hi money, you know, I really have a problem with you because da-da-da-da, and you're talking to it as if it's just your friend.
Oh my God, I love that. So what would your letter sound like?
That's a great question. It depends on which point of my life.
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
my letter might have been like, hi money, I'm really grateful that you're here, but I would like you to come visit more often. And I really miss you. And I'm sorry that I've been doing such an awful job of not hanging out with you enough and like not spending, like, you know what I mean? And just making it like I'm apologizing to a friend and being like, I'm really sorry I haven't been treating you well. Money, I haven't done it.
You know what? I love that, and I love that mindset because you have to treat money like it's not your enemy, and I feel like so many people do that. So I love that you're like, even when you're saying, hi money, hey, how are you doing? Like, why don't you show up when you want to, when I need you here, right? I think that's such an amazing way to think about it, because I think a lot of people think of money and money conversations as very adversarial, and really money is here to help you if you treat it right. I love that.
Good,
oh
yeah.
My gosh.
I'm glad I got to teach you something.
Yes, that's amazing.
So, okay, so you're quite young.
Sure.
Sure, let's go with it.
I'm
maybe
35.
Not quite.
Oh, no, I'm turning 35. I keep saying I'm 35.
Right, but like there's like, I feel like there's a stigma in our society when it comes to like women being successful, having a lot of money, or like feeling guilty about having money, or even like one of the concepts I grew up with is that you tend to make money as you get older.
Yes.
Money comes with age.
Yes.
Right, so like rewriting that belief. What are some things that you would want young girls to know?
That is a great question. I grew up in a very traditional Asian household where like the narrative was you need to make as much money as possible, doctor or lawyer, and that very stereotypical, right?
Okay.
I was the black sheep for going into human resources, but I still went to work for a huge bank. I went to go work for Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan in New York City. I was making six figures probably by the time I was 24, 25 because I thought that's what I was supposed to be doing. I was also the most miserable person I've ever been in my whole life. And in my MBA program, what was really fun was we had to do an exercise on just teaching someone about some sort of concept. And I made a graph, very basic, like third grader graph, where it was my happiness plotted against how much money I made, and there was a very clear inverse relationship to it, which I thought was super interesting because I now make probably less money than I made 10 years ago when I was in my 20s, but people tell me that it looks like I have a glow, looks like I'm really excited about life and all of that stuff, and it was partially because I was so focused on just making money, but it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. And even though I make less money now, I am more financially stable because I know how to keep money where I want it to be versus what I was doing in my 20s, which was a lot of drinking and going out to bars and, you know, just being a regular 20-year-old, trying to find that happiness thing. And so, you know, I think there is some some truth to money doesn't buy happiness, but I also know that not having money doesn't make you happy either. So what is that balance, and trying to figure that out?
Right. So what are ways to keep money?
Good question. So the number one thing I tell people, and it sounds super boring and stuff, is I like to call it money plan versus saying budgeting, because budgeting just has this like, connotation to it. But just have a plan for where your money is supposed to go. And the easiest way that I've been able to do that is to super simplify my finances. I have worked with people who have literally, 10 credit cards, 8 bank accounts, all these different places where their money is. For me, it's me and my husband. We have one joint checking account. We have one savings account, and then we have each of our retirement funds, and that's it.
Wow.
And I have an Acorns. I started an Acorns app, right?
Wait, what's Acorns?
It's an app where you can put like $5 a week and you can invest it.
Okay.
So it's super easy if someone is interested in just dabbling in investing. It's an easy way to do it without spending a ton of money. But so that's 5 different accounts, and our finances are super easy to track because we don't have to look in a billion different places of where we're spending money. And, I think the other tip, which is very controversial to people, is I do not use credit cards at all. I am the rare unicorn of a millennial that does not have a single credit card. And I cut out my credit cards 3 years ago, and it has changed my spending habits for the better.
So talk to me more about that. What have you noticed after you've cut out credit cards?
I definitely don't impulse purchase as much. I'm very much more thoughtful. An example that I give people was that when my husband and I became debt-free, we took ourselves to Italy, and we paid for it in cash, the entire trip. And we did that because we knew we were going to go to Italy on this date, so we saved up every month up until then, and we also saved all of our spending money and everything. So every day we would literally go to a different town in Italy and say, okay, we only have this much money we can spend on this day. And there was a day where we saw this kick-ass, am I allowed to curse?
Sure, I can make it. Yeah,
there's this amazing green leather jacket that just looks so cool, and my husband's like, oh my gosh, I really like this jacket. It is awesome. But it was a couple $100, and we were like, if we buy this, then we can't do anything else for the rest of the day. And it made us really think about, all right, would we rather have this green leather jacket, or would we rather go out to an awesome restaurant and get all the gelato that I want, or whatever it is? And in hindsight, right, he would have worn that green jacket, leather jacket, a handful of times at best. How many events can you go to with a green leather jacket, right? So that's really made me think about all of the things that we spend so much money on that we don't get a lot of use out of. And I probably would have bought it if we had a credit card because it was so cool that day. But you realize a couple of weeks later, like, you didn't need that, and that's changed.
Right. So just to play devil's advocate.
Yes.
Why not?
Yes, let's do it.
What about, with credit cards, you do get reward dollars back.
Yes, I love this question.
And you do get travel points sometimes, right?
Yes.
So why decide to miss out on those opportunities?
Yes. So I used to work in banking, and a lot of people think that they're, beating the system with all of the rewards and points. That system wouldn't exist if it wasn't in the benefit of the bank. So we really have to think about, all right, am I really saving more money by having the points? So the counter I get all the time is like, well, I travel a lot, and so I get travel points and all that stuff too. I also travel a lot. I'm on a plane at least every other week, right? Mm-hmm. I still have a debit card, and I also have my rewards from the airlines that I go to. So this Thanksgiving, I went to go visit family in Cleveland, Ohio during Thanksgiving weekend, which is usually a blackout date for a lot of credit cards. And I still had enough points to go travel for free to Cleveland, nice. Right? So, and that's without use of a credit card. So what I tell people is that, I used to be that person too, because I used to work for the place that did it, right? And I tell people, if you are hesitant about that, I encourage people to try not using a credit card for just 30 days, for 1 month, and just use a debit card or cash and see if your habits change. Because for me, it really made me think about if I wanted something, and it really curbed my spending. And I also noticed that, and I think they've done the research on this, but it is a lot harder to give someone a crisp $100 bill and let them take it away from you than giving them your credit card. And that makes you really think about whether you want to make that purchase or not.
Right. I like it. I'm one of those spenders who I like to, like, well, at one point in my life, I've kind of gotten away from this.
Yeah.
Putting myself out there. But normally I would only put something on a credit card if I had enough in my debit to pay it off.
Yes.
And then I would pay off my credit card in full. So majority of the time my credit cards are paid off in full.
Yes.
It's been a few years. But that's because I've been investing, right?
Yes.
Investing in yourself, in your business.
Yes.
So on purpose. But that's kind of my idea. So it's like, okay, I'm going to have a credit card, pay it off in full, but then still kind of reap the rewards.
Yes, yeah. So I used to do that too. I was never a person who carried a balance on my credit card. So someone said to me once, like, you must have been so bad with credit cards, that's why you had to do it. And I was like, oh, well, I never thought of that. But no, actually, I paid off my balance in full every single time. But what I've learned is that without having the credit cards, again, simplifying and understanding where my money goes has been so much easier. It has really curbed my appetite for, because I love shoes, I love, designer handbags. I am no different from any other New York City born and raised girl, right? But it just gives me another pause as to whether or not I really need those things. I used to have, and I'll need to put it on my new debit card, but I had a little sticker on my debit card that said, is this purchase pushing you closer or farther away from your dreams?
Ooh.
And so even if you don't want to give up your credit card, a little reminder like that on your credit card might give you some pause, to say, okay, this coffee that I'm going to get today, or, this, blouse that I'm only going to wear one time, like, do I really need it? Or do I really want to put that money towards that business that I'm building, or, my kids' college fund, or whatever it is.
Right. I love how conscious you are. Like, I love how you're money conscious.
I was not always this way, and there are certain days that I'm definitely not this way. Perfect example, a couple weeks ago, I was like, you know what, I've kind of fallen off the rails, and this is the thing too, people assume that I'm super disciplined, but I have to rein myself in sometimes too, and since we became debt free, I was like, oh yeah, let's just go back to like everything that we were doing, right? And 2 weeks ago, I was like, you know what, Bernadette, you gotta get your life together, and you gotta, get back on the habits that, kept you debt free in the first place. And that same day, BTS, my favorite K-pop group, was like, we're just announcing our new album, and we're going to be going on tour, and we're gonna be in New York 3 weeks from now. And I was like, let me look up flights to New York, and I was like, all right, I've come to the conclusion that you cannot be a K-pop fan and also be financially responsible, but which one am I going to choose? So, whatever that equivalent of K-pop is for people, I understand the struggle.
Yeah. So was there anything that you specifically wanted to share today with young women who are listening to this that might be struggling with balancing, like, their life and their monies and all the things?
Yeah, so that is who I'm looking for in my next project. So I've never considered myself a creative because I've grown up in these corporate worlds. And I decided that this year, one of the great things I want to do is, instead of just sharing my story, is I want to share stories of 100 other women who are nothing like me. So a lot of the feedback I get from people is like, oh, you are good with money because you don't have kids. It's because you live in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's because you have a husband. It's because you're Asian, whatever it is.
Sounds like a lot of excuses.
Right, exactly. And so, my thought is that there are so many other people who are doing what I'm doing, but they're just not as obnoxious on social media like I am. So I want to give voices to those people and show, the broader population that this isn't just, because I was particularly disciplined. It's because there is power in making a choice of what you want your life to be, and I want to see all these other women do that. So I am recruiting 100 women from everywhere, who the basic requirements is that you are willing to pay $10,000 of debt this year, whatever kind of debt it is, and you're willing to be part of a community of other women who are trying to do the same thing and teach one another.
That's incredible.
And and also be filmed.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. If anybody fits that criteria, where could they contact you at?
Sure, it's crushyourmoneygoals.com, and there is the application where you can fill it out, and then if you want to just chat with me and see if it's a good fit for you before you apply, you can find me in all the social media places at Bernadette Joy, and it's spelled BERNADEBT, so with the word debt in it. Joy.
Oh, I loved it. I remember seeing your Instagram name and I was like, that's so clever.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I'm going to put all those links in my show description. So
awesome.
everyone will see them there. Yeah, you're so inspiring. Like,
oh,
I just think
Thank you.
money, like I said, money's such a taboo topic, and it's one of those things where it's like we feel weird about it.
Yes.
It's like, why do we feel weird? Why do we have to?
I know, and I still feel weird about it sometimes too, and I think that is also unique to women a lot of times as well. I've heard, and again, because I used to work in HR, I used to see guys and my counterparts talk about their salaries in the elevator, like things like that, and I would not see anyone on the female side doing anything like that. And I think there is a lot of things that are interesting to me that people are more willing nowadays sometimes to talk more about sex than to talk about money.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing, and I'm hoping just by sharing what I'm doing that it will open up the conversation.
Yes, it should. Awesome. Anything else you want to talk about with us today?
No, I will totally be writing a letter to myself and my money friend
Yes!
today, so thank you for that.
Yeah. I hope it's a really good one. Money, thank you for helping me get to go see camp. I appreciate you.
Money, you'll be leaving my bank account shortly to go to Korea because that's where it's going to land.
And then it's going to come back to me.
Yes.
Tenfold.
I love it. I love it. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you so much.